All right, this is the copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. And this video is not for any monetary gain. It is explicitly for the reasons stipulated in the Copyright Act of 1976 under Section 107.
You know, Charlie Kirk's words weren't just words. Statements like prowling blacks go around for fun to target white people. It's happening more and more. No, those aren't just words. That's really ammunition, okay? For decades, black people, especially black men, were exposed to heinous crimes because of white lies and negative propaganda against them. These words were all the reason that evil white racists needed to unalive, to lynch, to take the life of a black person without any care to them as a human being or to their families. And they even had the law on their side. Honestly, most of the people who were doing this were people of the law. You see, white lies, supremacy, and dominance that they so desperately needed is the reason why a lot of us don't have empathy for what's happening. Because stories like the execution of Tommy Lee Walker are all the proof that words not only hurt, but they can kill too.
Do you have anything to say why the sentence of law should not be pronounced against you?
Will you repeat yourself again?
I say, do you have anything to say why the sentence of law should not be pronounced against you?
Yes.
Well, say it.
I feel that I have been tricked out of my life. There's a lot of other people that have been convicted for crimes they committed and was turned loose. I haven't did anything, and I'm not being turned loose. That's all.
That's all you have to say. It is the order and judgment of this court that you, Tommy Lee Walker, who has been adjudged to be guilty of murder with malice, and whose punishment has been assessed by the verdict of the jury and the judgment of the court at death. Said warden is hereby directed and commanded to pass and cause to be passed through the body of you, Tommy Lee Walker, a current of electricity of sufficient intensity to cause the death of you, Tommy Lee Walker, and to continue to apply and continue to pass and cause to be passed said current of electricity through the body of you, said Tommy Lee Walker, until you, said Tommy Lee Walker, is dead.
"70 years after his execution, justice has finally been served for Tommy Lee Walker. In one of the most sensational trials in the history of Dallas, a landmark decision, a Dallas court has officially declared him innocent of the 1948 murder of Venice Walker, for which he was put to death. This historic resolution comes after years of tireless work, after a years-long joint reinvestigation by the Dallas County District Attorney's Conviction Integrity Unit, the Innocence Project, and the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project at Northeastern University School of Law. It was concluded that Mr. Walker's arrest, interrogation, prosecution, and conviction were fundamentally compromised by false or unreliable evidence, coercive interrogation tactics, and racial bias. Walker, a black man, was convicted by an all-white jury based on a coerced confession and questionable evidence. Mr. Walker was interrogated for hours by notorious Homicide Bureau Chief and one-time Ku Klux Klan member Will Fritz and Dallas's District Attorney Henry Wade. Mr. Walker had no chance at trial. In addition to the underlying racism animating the entire investigation and prosecution, the trial was riddled with prosecutorial misconduct. The only evidence the state had against Mr. Walker, other than the coerced false confession, was the testimony of two eyewitnesses who purported to place Mr. Walker near the scene during Ms. Parker's attack, but did not witness the actual crime. This case shines a harsh light on the deep-seated injustices of the past and the devastating consequences of wrongful convictions. While this ruling can't bring him back, it restores his name and brings a measure of peace to his family. It's a powerful reminder that the fight for justice, no matter how long it takes, is always worth it. Please like, share, and comment. Thank you for watching.
This is the book of Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 10, and it reads, For thy violence against thy brother Jacob shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rahak HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching me this 100% truth. Salutations to them from my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also salutations to the hopeful elect
of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Ayashar Barazar from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone, coming back at you with another lesson that is edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. All right, and this opening scripture is, going into the prophecy of what's going to happen to Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, okay, who is the wicked according to Malachi 1 and 4. All right, and he's described as that red individual because his blood shows forth through his skin, according to Genesis 25 and 25. Okay, the so-called white man, which is a social construct that he created. The word white means without moral impurity, and as we are showing time and time again with our series called "For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob," and throughout his history, that he's trying to remove that his whole character, his whole being, is definitely not without moral impurity. This is the devil that the Bible speaks of, and we're going to see with this story here. All right. So yeah, so the scripture, is saying, hey, for all the violence that you have done, still doing, and continue to do to this very day to Jacob, it's going to be exposed. You're going to be ashamed of it. That's why recently, the stuff was removed from Philadelphia. Trump had it removed. They at one time they boasted about about what they did to stand in front of pictures, with the bodies burned and hanging, and now they don't want to see it. All right, it's too late. It's already out there. All right, and because of that shame, you're gonna be cut off forever. Yes, there will be no more so-called white people on this earth when this is all said and done. You, according to the scriptures, you will disappear, never to be seen again. All right, for all of your wickedness. All right, and they live, like I said, you're gonna be cut off forever. And don't get it twisted. It's just not about skin color. You got a lot of chocolate covered Edomites out there. The enemy sowed his seed, and you got a lot of them out there. Let's say for who, you got a lot of black so-called people that you think are black or Negro that are actually Edomites. And when the angels come and make that separation, as told in the parable in Matthew 13, those chocolate-covered Edomites will be eradicated, the whole seed line. All right. So, without further ado, I'm going to get to this article. It's from complex.com. All right, I'll put a link of this article in the description box. And if I don't finish it throughout this video, you can always hit the link in the description box and go and read it for yourself. All right. And it says, Tommy Lee Walker exonerated 70 years after execution for 1953 killing. All right. And this happened too many times throughout history. All it took was an accusation of Jake for not only him to be killed, but the wiping out of a whole community. And then they come back years later and exonerate him. That's that same case with George Stinney, who the movie The Green Mile was made off of. Okay, he was so small they had to sit him on books before they gave him, they electrocuted him. And sat him on the Bible on top of that, which, goes to show you that this devil he'll call himself a Christian, but he's the hugest hypocrite out there, all right? His God is Satan, the devil, all right? And, you have a lot of these so-called white people want to throw out that statistic, 13%, 50% of the crime. Well, that's been debunked with your own FBI statistics, all right? But what you don't like to talk about is the exonerations, almost 60%. All right? Meaning that, you were wrong in the first place. You just wanted to find a scapegoat. All right. So back to the article. It says Tommy Lee Walker exonerated 70 years after execution for a 1953 killing. It says in 1956, Tommy Lee Walker, a black man, which knows no such thing as black. We're all different shades of brown. Okay, that's that byword that they put on us. Black meaning void of light, void of wisdom, everything wicked, evil, dark. And they put that on us. All right. It says 1956, Tommy Lee Walker, a so-called black man, was wrongfully convicted and executed for the murder of Venice Parker. This is by Bernadette Giacomazzo. Not sure what that name is, but don't think it's a Jake woman, because they're starting to tell a lot on their people anyway. The Edomite woman is really, you get recently with these MAGA things with the ICE going off, they're divorcing their husbands. All right, but that's another story. And that's Tommy Lee Walker right there in the photograph. It says 70 years after he was sent to the electric chair, Tommy Lee Walker has officially been cleared of the crime that cost him his life. And he knew it then. When that guy asked it, if he had any last words, he said, "I feel like I've been tricked out of my life." All right. The man was attending, the birth of his child while this was going on. All right. When that so-called rape and murder, rape and murder took place. All right. It says on January 21st, Dallas County Commissioners in Texas unanimously approved a resolution exonerating Walker, a 19-year-old black man who was executed in 1956 for the rape and murder of Venice Parker, a white store clerk. And, here's a video that's embedded in the article. You can click on that at your leisure. Okay, but this, this was the standard. Emmett Till died the same way. So many Jake men and their communities were destroyed because of an alleged crime against a so-called white woman, who we now know don't even like her men. So, but yeah, let me get a scripture on that. This is Sirach or Ecclesiasticus 11 and 7, I believe. Yeah. All right. It says, "Blame not before thou hast examined the truth. Understand first and then rebuke." And that was never the case when it comes to Jake. You see now in these comments in these articles, when Esau is blaming something, we need the whole story. That never happened with Jake. All right. That was the first person they saw and accused. Never, most cases, never got a trial. And when he was in prison for a trial, a so-called white mob, took over the jail, which we find out later. That jail was never taken over. The sheriff or whoever was in charge of the jail willingly let those mobs in to execute Jake and then run and wreak havoc on the rest of the community. Okay? So, yeah, they never wanted to understand first because it was an opportunity to unalive a so-called black man. And the reason being because he was no longer their slaves. So what use did he have? All right? No longer a slave. Okay? Verse 8, it says, "Answer not before thou hast heard the cause, neither interrupt men in the midst of their talk." And, hey, they weren't trying to hear what he was saying. He said he didn't do it, so they kept coercing him, threatening him with execution. All right? 10 people said that he was not there. Verify that he was not there. And they still went ahead and destroyed Jake. All right. You know, it reminds me of a story my father used to tell me. He grew up in the South, Mississippi, Big Zag. He said, man, you know, you can have 100 black, so-called black people tell the exact same story on different accounts, different times, the exact same story. He said all it took was one white man to come up and say something different, and that's who they would go with. You know? So yeah, that's just the way this devil is. All right, let's go back to the article. It says, according to the Innocence Project, a modern review concluded that Walker's arrest, prosecution, and conviction were shaped by unreliable evidence, coercive interrogation tactics, and racial bias. And they knew that from the beginning. When you look at those two clips, they knew this from the beginning, but still executed Jake. All right. It says Walker was accused after Parker was attacked while waiting for a bus in September 1953. She had been stabbed and sexually assaulted and later died from her injuries. More than likely, that was an Edomite, the so-called white man who did that. All right? And he's probably running around today, you know, laughing about this. All right? Goes on and says police claim that moments before her death, Parker identified her attacker as a black man. All right? Well, if she did or not, you know, she has to pay for that too. You know, she lied on that man. It cost him his life. You know, and this is something, you know, the Lord is not going to acquit a lot of these Edomite women for the stuff that they caused. That Carolyn Bryant, who caused the death of Emmett Till. In this case, all right, she will not be acquitted. She has, you know, the whole Casual Killing Act of I think it was 1861, somewhere around there, 1865, where, you know, if you killed a slave through the course of correction, you know, there would be no penalty for it. All right, 1661, I think it was. I can't remember, but yeah, it's called the Casual Killing Act. All right, I'll put it in the description box or the comments. You know, if when I find it after this video. But yeah, and that's pretty much, you know, with this whole killing with impunity that the police have today. You know, stop resisting, and you're not resisting. That's so they can be on a record of saying that they were trying to correct you and justified unaliving you. All right. So, back to the article. It says police claim that moments before her death, Parker identified her attacker as a so-called black man, despite witnesses saying she was unable to speak because her throat had been slit. No physical evidence tied Walker to the crime. All right. So either she said that or they lied on her. All right. But nevertheless, like I said, the so-called white woman has a history of getting not only that Jake killed, but his whole community destroyed. And along with the, you know, her male counterpart, she would not be exonerated from that. This is Psalms 109. All right. Verse 14. It says, I'll start at 13. It says, let his posterity be cut off. And that posterity means from the progenitor of a nation to the furthest descendant of the same nation. All right. In this case, this is, you know, Esau Edom, the wicked, the so-called white man. All right. It says, let his posterity be cut off, and in the generation following, let their name be blotted out. All right. No longer existing. You all don't realize, you know, with everything that's going on, you know, especially right now up in Minnesota, your existence is on a clock that's ticking real fast, you know. And trust and believe the elect of Israel are hastening that day when your judgment comes. All right. What's that? Sirach 25 and 7. I think it's 7 or 9 about them. Nothing better than a man seeing the downfall of his enemies. Let me grab that and come right back. I kind of be thinking and get all over the place. 25 and 9 or 7. Yes, verse 7. It says, there be 9 things which I have judged in mine heart to be happy, and a 10th I will utter with my tongue. A man that have joy of his children, and he that liveth to see the fall of his enemy. And that day is close at hand, because we seeing all these curses, starting to move. Jake's still going to get his in Jacob's trouble, but you so-called Edomites, so-called white people, are definitely starting to feel this, those curses. The economy being on the bottom of the barrel, have the police have no regard for your life, like they've never had for ours. Yeah, it's about to be on. All right. Back to Psalms 109. All right. I read 13. Let his posterity be cut off, and in the generation following, let their name be blotted out. Verse 14. Let the iniquity of his fathers be remembered with Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and let not the sin of his mother be blotted out. So yeah, you so-called white women, you will be recompensed for your sins as well too. All right. Now, mind you, many of you will definitely be concubines that help bring forth the nation when you're in slavery, just like you all did to us, but ours will be in righteousness. Okay, it will be in righteousness. So you're getting on these platforms talking about how much you want to date a so-called black man. You're gonna have that opportunity whether you want to or not. All right, in the kingdom. In the kingdom. Bringing forth a lot of children. A lot of children. And see the way this works, that's what we go to tell you. There's no such thing as biracial. Whatever the father is, that's what the child is. All right? It is a man who is the progenitor of a nation. All right? Go look at the lineage of our Lord, Yahushua, in Matthew 1. Okay? He had 3 heathen women. All right? Tamar, Rahab, and Ruth were all in the lineage of the Lord, heathen women. But that never changed the fact that he came out of the tribe of Judah. Women do not have seed. All right? So you all will be concubines, and then once that time is up, according to Obadiah 1 and 18, you will be right in that pit, along with your Edom counterparts, destroyed. That's in the scriptures. All right? Obadiah 1 and 18. So yeah, it says, and let not the sin of his mother be blotted out. So no, you're going to pay for that. All right? Verse 15. It says, let them be before the Lord continually, that he may cut off the memory of them from the earth. You will no longer exist for all the wickedness that you've done on this planet. And that's coming real soon. All right? Especially you, Amalek, the first of the nations, the chief nation of Edom, and the chief nation of this world right now, because it's given into your hands. We know who controls everything. But yes, you will be gone according to the scriptures. Let me grab that in Obadiah 1 and 18. It says, in the house of Jacob, the southern kingdom shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph, the northern kingdom, a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai have spoken it. And we know, according to Isaiah 55, the Lord's word does not return unto him void. Once it goes out, it'll accomplish exactly what he said. Roughly paraphrasing Isaiah 55. All right? So, yeah, you all are going to pay for what you've done. Back to the article. It says, at the time of the attack, Walker was miles away, spending the night with his pregnant girlfriend, Mary Louise Smith, who went into labor. Their son was born in the early hours of the next morning. 10 witnesses testified at the trial that Walker was present for the birth. That alibi didn't stop authorities from focusing on Walker months later amid intense public pressure to solve the case. He was interrogated for hours by Homicide Chief Will Fritz and prosecutors under then District Attorney Henry Wade. All right, and we know some of them were involved with the Klan. All right. It says Walker eventually signed 2 written statements after being threatened with execution and told police had evidence that that didn't exist. All right. He recanted one almost immediately. He never confessed to rape. All right. It says, we know that the threats of the death penalty, isolation, and deception place people at significant risk of falsely confessing, said Lauren Gottsman, an attorney representing Walker's family. And they did this all the time. You know, it was never, because you're never going to get a jury of your peers, regardless. All right. There's always going to be a full jury of nothing but Edomites, so-called white people. All right. It says the case went before an all-white jury. Yeah, see, there we go. Went before an all-white jury. Prosecutors withheld evidence, relied on shaky eyewitness accounts, and Wade even took the stand to declare his personal belief that Walter was guilty. Walter was convicted and executed at age 21. A reinvestigation by the Dallas County District Attorney's Conviction Integrity Unit, the Innocence Project, and Northeastern University's Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project uncovered extensive misconduct, which was always the case. The review also tied Walker's case to a broader pattern of wrongful conviction during Wade's tenure. Yep. All of those cases need to be checked that he was into. It says, for Walker's son, Edward Smith, the child who was born the night his father was accused of the crime he didn't commit and that cost him his life, the ruling brought long delayed recognition. This won't bring him back, Smith said, but now the world knows what we always knew. He was an innocent man. Man. All right, that's the end of that. It was interesting, you know. The mother didn't let the son take on the father's last name. You know, took hers. So that's a whole nother story going into those curses. All right. So, yeah. So that's the article. Like I said, I put a link of it in the description box, and get a couple of scriptures and close it out. This is Colossians. Colossians chapter 3 and verse 25. It says, but he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he have done, and there is no respect of persons. So I'm telling you, in the scriptures, you know, the sins of the father will be visited upon the third and fourth generation. All right, you will pay for what you did. We're not trying to hear, like I said, it says no respect to persons. We're not trying to hear I was there. I wasn't there. That was my forefathers. I had nothing to do with that. You know, the Lord doesn't care about that. You know, It is at his discretion to judge according to a nation, all right, or an individual. You get that in Job 34 and 29. All right, it's his discretion. And then even when it came to the nation of Israel, you know, we all agreed to that covenant. You had a lot of our wicked people that went against it, but the judges, you get that in Daniel chapter 9. Even those who were faithful unto the Lord, you know, were afflicted. That's because we agreed as a nation. Look at the situation when Joshua was leading the Israelites to the promised land. You know, because of one person, the whole nation got messed up. Achan in Joshua 7, yeah, first time Israel lost a war because of the disobedience. And yeah, we got jacked up, but shoot, Achan, not only the stuff that he took was destroyed, but him and his whole family wasn't worth it. But that's just Jake, all right. But yeah, so the same thing for you, Esau. You're gonna pay. You're going to pay. It doesn't matter if you were there or not. All right, that's the way this works, and the scriptures tell you that. This is Isaiah chapter 14, verse 21. It says, "Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity or the sins of their fathers." Prepare slaughter for his children, your descendants, for the sins of your fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. You will never be in rulership again once this rulership is over. And it's coming to an end quick. We see y'all so proud about this year, 250 years. The United States has been wreaking havoc on Jake as well as the rest of the world. 250 years. It's coming to an end. Like the scriptures say, when you're about to fill your belly, thinking everything is all good and dandy, the Lord is going to rain that wrath on you, you know. And I don't know anybody, when it rains, I don't know anybody who's been able to escape a raindrop, especially when you're out in the open and exposed. So yeah, you about to meet that. That time is coming quick. All right, verse 22. It says, "For I will rise up against them, saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushai of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord." That's all males. That's your entire seed line. And as I said before, a nation is established by the house of the Father. Obadiah 1 and 18 told you there should be no more remaining of the house of Esau. This is reaffirming that right here and right now. All right? You shed a lot of blood in this land. A lot of blood. And it has to be recompensed with yours. All right? This is Numbers 35 and 33. And it reads, "So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it." Yes, a life for a life. And this is the true reparations right here. No amount of money in the world can pay for what you did. Your existence must come to an end, and it is, according to the scriptures, especially beginning with Amalek, because you're in rulership of the world right now. You're in rulership of the world. I'll get to you a little bit later. To finish this off, I'm going to Joel chapter 3, beginning verse 19. It says, Egypt shall be your desolation. All right. This means the house of bondage, America. All right. And Edom, see, it's associating Edom with Egypt, okay, which is America. House of bondage, Jeremiah 15:33 says Judah and Israel were oppressed here together. All right. It says for the violence against the children of Judah. All right, which is what you did, transatlantic slave trade. All right. It says because they have shed innocent blood in their land. Didn't we just talk about bloodshed in the land and who has to pay for that? It says, but Judah, the southern kingdom, shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem, that's the northern kingdom, from generation to generation. All right, so what that's telling you here is that now we're in those immortal bodies, okay, with that spiritual power, the gods that we once were, we will be again. Like it says in Psalms 82:6, ye were gods. Well, we're going to be gods again, with that same power. That same power, okay? So it's like, okay, you have a problem with Jake now in his low estate. Even in those days, it took mobs of people to take down one man. If you don't outnumber Jake or outgun Jake, chances are you're going to lose that battle hand to hand when the playing field is level. That's just the facts. When the children were in the womb and said, one people shall be stronger than the other. Well, we know who that is. We know Jake is stronger than the average Edomite. Hell, the bone density of our woman is greater than the men's on average. All right. It says, for I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed. For Yahweh dwelleth in Zion. Read that again. For I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed. For Yahweh Bashem Yahushai dwelleth in Zion. And how is he going to cleanse that blood? I just read that in Numbers 35 and 33. All right. The only way that blood can be cleansed is by shedding the blood of him that spilled it. Roughly paraphrased. All right. So yeah, for that perpetual hatred you've had against Jake, you're going to pay for that. And this Jake who passed away, who was executed, everybody who has something to do with that, the Lord may just give him the opportunity to judge you directly, for what you did. You just never know. That's just me speaking as a man. But yeah, you're going to have to pay for that. You have not gotten away with anything. And a lot of y'all know it too. You know it in your spirit. All right. So with that, I hope this lesson was edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. Once again, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rahakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching me this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners, and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom, Kwam Yasharallah, Abba Babal. Shalom. We got next.